Hey guys, Josh at Tech, and I want to do a quick comparison video between the Nexus 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. These are by far the two biggest popular big phones out there that you can get on the market. These two phones are huge. They are not your average phone size by any means. The stuff I want to talk about in this video is more of how can you use this in your everyday life, not just a specs war, see specs side to side, but which one do you want to go for if you're looking for a bigger phone? And what are some of the things that you might be looking for in one of these kind of phones and the stuff to look out for? I'll leave a link in the description of all the specs. If you do want to see all those specs, we'll talk a little bit of the generalization of those kind of topics, but I just basically want to compare the two and see which one you should go for if you don't know which one to go for. Motorola is the company that made the Nexus this year, and they went with a 6-inch display, technically 5.9-inch, but might as well just say it's a 6. It comes with a 2K screen, which is really beautiful. It's an amazing screen, and it's huge. We'll get into that real quick in just a minute. And over here on this side, we got the iPhone 6 Plus, and they went with a 5.5-inch screen. But what's interesting is that the phones are about the same body size, but with different screen sizes, which is interesting to me. Speaking about the build quality of both these phones I think are really awesome. The iPhone 6 Plus, I'll give it the edge to that because of the full metal body. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and try to bend this, so if you're already asking, just don't even bother. I'm not going to bend the phone to see if it bends. The Nexus 6 has like a metal frame on the outside and a hard plastic, but it still feels really premium. I really enjoyed the build quality of this device. It feels really nice in hand, and it just feels nice with that curved back. The curved back just really adds to the contour of your hand when you're holding it, and especially that's really important because it's such a big device that you want it to be comfortable in hand and not awkward to hold. Now the iPhone 6 Plus, it's actually got a really nice feel to it. The curved kind of edges here feel really nice. But if you have slippery hands, you might want to put a case on this kind of thing because it does get slippery every once in a while. The same goes with the Nexus 6, but I'd say this phone is a little bit more slippery than the Nexus 6. The other aspect that I want to talk about is the in-hands operation. Does this thing actually get annoying? Is it comfortable, or does it just get in the way of how big it is? Now, I have big hands. I'm a 6'3" tall guy that just handles these kind of phones pretty well. Since I've had the Nexus 6, it's actually been quite a stretch to get to the other side. There's been times to where I just really had to just bust up the other hand and use two hands to do whatever operation I was trying to get done. But I'm a stubborn guy, and I really try to use phones with just one hand. That's just how I like to use them. So I do have to do a little bit of shimming and try to get used to stuff like that. The times to where I actually have the most trouble stretching across the screen is when I'm doing some hardcore gaming on Candy Crush. This thing at times is just like I get to these certain areas of the phone to where I just need to use two hands. And let's see if we can get an example here just to show you what it's like. Now you can see here, like I can shimmy, kind of move the phone down. I've just kind of found a skill of how to do that, I guess you could say. But anyways, like, yeah, in the other maps, sometimes you have to reach to that far corner and it can get kind of difficult to do. But as you can see here, when I have the phone in the middle of my hand, it's fine. But most of the time when I'm holding the device, I have my pinky down here. I just kind of cradle the phone for some more security. And obviously I can't reach that top corner. I have to shimmy it down or bring in my second hand and tap it over here. So that's, I think, a good example of how the stretchability of your fingers will be like with this phone. Let's just say your hand will not cramp anytime soon because it stretches just enough when you're using this phone. All right, so here's the iPhone 6 Plus, and the display is actually a little bit thinner than the Nexus 6. The Nexus 6, again, it's a 5.9-inch screen. This is a 5.5-inch screen, and so it allows a little bit more friendly stretching, I guess you could say. But in the same sense, when I put my pinky finger down here to help cradle and hold the phone, I still can't get to that very top corner. I still have to shimmy down or bring in that second hand to go ahead and tap any kind of corner. So those are things to think about when you're using these devices, that I'd say about 75% of the time you could use this with one hand, but the other 25% you're going to have to either shimmy or bring in that second hand to get to those different corners. One of the things that I like about the Nexus 6 is that the buttons are placed just right. I think they're in a great location, and the power button actually has this texture to where you can feel it and you know where the power button's at. And if you just know that the volume markers are right there, there's no issues whatsoever with finding the buttons. So it makes it really easy to press the buttons, and this is a great feature if you have small hands because it just reduces the amount of shimmying that you do. Now, if you're a lefty, you're just in tough luck. You're going to have to learn how to use your fingers over here instead, or get used to stretching over this side. However, the iPhone 6 Plus, it's got the power button way up top, so you have to actually do some shimmying, or you have to have the phone in your middle of your hand or your palm to get to the button easily. If you're down here at the bottom like I like to normally hold it, I was actually like, here's a SIM card slot right here. When I was using this after using my Nexus 6 for a while, I was, oh crap, that's not the power button. That's actually just the SIM card tray. It's the power button's up here. I'll give it to Apple that it was a good idea to put it on the side instead of the top, because that definitely would have made it not as easy. But I would say that they still should have put it further down, and actually I would say they should have put all the buttons right here. Instead of having the volume rockers all the way over here and then the power button there, I just think it'd be a little bit more functional if they had it all in one spot. The other thing I like to talk about is accessing the camera right from the lock screen. This is actually an important feature to me because if I want to take a quick pic of something and it's really time sensitive, I want to be able to get to the camera really fast to take that picture or a video. So let's just say you got to get a picture taken, you got to tap the power button, and the best way to do it is to completely swipe from right to left. If you try to do any other kind of motion, you'll probably do it hit and miss. You might be able to get it. And sometimes, if you just go at an angle, it doesn't really do it. So you just have to hit it just right, and it takes a second to open, and then you can start snapping your pictures. On the iPhone 6 Plus, you have the option of hitting the power button, and then you got the camera right here. And you're going to want to flip up, and then the focus is actually pretty fast, and snap that picture. So I would say the speed-wise, I think the iPhone 6 Plus definitely has the edge on that. You can either hit the power button or the home button to get to the lock screen and then just slide up and you're ready to start taking those pictures. And if you need to switch a mode, all you got to do is swipe over left to right. And that's all you have to do. It's really easy, and I like that a lot. Back to Nexus 6, I'll show you it's not as easy to get to the different modes. And I really think that's where the iPhone really excels, is in the camera department, because as you can see when you open up the app, you get these little options that kind of show up at first, but then they disappear. You can swipe over, but then you're going to have to actually select it. And it's not as easy to just get the video going as well. You have to just really kind of be quick with what option you want to use. You can see you just have to switch back and forth like that. And if you want to do the front-facing camera, you got to go to this menu here, swap it over, and then it changes it like that. With the iPhone 6 Plus, you have the option ever present right here, which makes it really easy to switch back and forth. You don't have to find the menu button anywhere. And on the Google camera, the options kind of disappear and you got to tap or swipe to get them to reappear. So I like having the ever present buttons. I think that just makes it really easy to use. Another feature I like to talk about is how well can you actually text with this kind of device. Is it going to be an easy one to text with just one hand, or are you going to need those two hands to get that done? As far as how I use the Android devices, I always put on SwiftKey, so there's the option of doing the swiping to text. And so you have that option that makes it really easy for the one-handed use. Obviously that wasn't really a word that I was trying to get, but here we go with like a real test. You can see that I can't talk and type at the same time, but you get the picture. So there's that option there. You can do the swiping with this, and the Google keyboard has that option as well. But let's say you just want to do the single tap, and that's how that works. So I'd say it's pretty easy to text with just one hand. Again, I got big hands, but of course you can be able to text with two hands just as easy as any other phone. As far as the iPhone 6 Plus, because of the thinner body or the skinnier body, I'd say it's definitely going to be just as easy. And the iPhone keyboard is actually pretty good in my opinion. It's always been one of my favorites, just the single taps. It does really well. I think it's a great keyboard, so it's definitely not going to be an issue on this phone. And as always with any other phone, typing is just as fine with two hands using this, but definitely I'd say I give the edge to one-handed texting to the iPhone 6 Plus. And just to show you some of the thinness that these devices have, the Nexus 6 is a little bit thicker, but it doesn't feel thick because of the way it's built. The edges here are thin, but you got that little bit of a hump right here that adds that thickness, but it's not really that much more thicker than the iPhone 6 Plus. As far as height-wise, it's really a tie. You really can't tell the difference. There might be a slight difference between the two. The difference is what you're going to see is in the width. The width of the Nexus 6 is definitely wider than the iPhone 6 Plus. Some other factors that I like to mention, I guess you could say honorable mention, kind of things that you might want to look out for, is if you're into the smartwatch kind of scene, if you want to get that kind of thing, you're kind of limited with your options with the iPhone. Pretty much the only one that you could really consider getting at this point is the Pebble Watch, which is not a bad one. It does the job, it gets it done. But if you want to get something like the Moto 360, like I have suited up right here, you're going to have to get an Android device. Now, the Apple Watch is set to be delivered, sometime next year in 2015, but it's only going to be compatible with the iPhone. If you're in the market to get a smartwatch, keep those things in mind, that if you're going to want a smartwatch, you're going to have to spend over $350 on that Apple Watch. It's pretty expensive. The Moto 360, I paid $250 for it when it first came out. Now, there's other options out there like the Asus Zen watch, you get the LG G watch. Lots of good sales going on right now for the Android smartwatches, so that's something to consider. So if you're in the market to get a smartwatch, those are the price comparisons that you're going to have to look forward to getting if you're going to get an iPhone with a smartwatch. As far as camera quality goes, the iPhone 6 Plus definitely knocks this one out of the park. I'd say it would be almost a tie or so if you have really good daylight settings. So the Nexus 6 takes really good pictures. Other than that, low light settings, the Nexus really does struggle in that department. The iPhone 6 Plus, iPhones just take really awesome pictures. It's just something that they've really nailed down. Apple does a really good job with their cameras. Another thing to consider is that both phones handle gaming just fine. I'd say that you could enjoy any game on either phone and it's going to be just fine. So I would say that's not really a deciphering factor because they both perform really well. They've got really good performance skills. Some other little notes to take consideration is that you have front-facing speakers with the Nexus 6, which is really awesome. They sound great. I love the fact of having front-facing speakers because when you're watching a video or playing a game, you got the sound coming at you, not away from you. Your hand's never going to block it. It's just a perfect placement for speakers. Now the iPhone 6 Plus, like many other phones, they got the speaker either on the side or like Samsung devices on the back. But this iPhone, of course, it's on the side. So you have a potential to block the sound if you're holding the phone like this. So you're going to have to cup it to where the sound kind of travels back over to you. That's just a little tip. If you cup your hand like this, the sound just kind of curves over back at you. With the Nexus 6, you don't have to worry about that because the speakers are on the front. Now, one of the things I would say they've probably dipped out on doing anything like that is because they got this bezel and it actually does help with holding the device. All in all, these phones are really awesome. It's really just a preference issue if you want an iPhone ecosystem versus an Android ecosystem, which as far as operating systems go, they are on par. iOS 8 is amazing on this phone. Android 5.0 Lollipop is amazing on this phone. They both are just as good in my opinion. They're just nice. They work well, they function. I like it a lot. So it's just one of those things that's a preference issue. Do you want to go with Android? The revamped Android, I would say. The Android that really just knocks a lot of OSs out of the park. This one, it's the same thing as we expect with iPhones. It works, the ecosystem's great. If you have a lot of Apple products like an iPad, MacBook, iPods, the whole shebang, because of the continuity that Apple has, you might want to consider getting an Apple device. Personally, I like Android phones and I'll use other Apple products like a MacBook or an iPad, but I really like to use an Android for my phone. Alright guys, there's my comparison video. It's probably longer than I wanted it to be, but there's a lot of different factors that you have to consider when you're getting a phone. I hope that this video is helpful to you if you are trying to decide between getting an Android device or an iPhone. I'd say that these two are the most comparable next to each other because of just the stock kind of feel that it has. This is stock Android. There's no bells and whistles to it. This is iPhone. No real bells and whistles with this either. It's got a fingerprint scanner and a better camera, things like that. So it just kind of depends on the ecosystem, I would say, of what you want in a device. If there's some things that you thought I might have missed or things that you want to point out between the two, leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you thought that it was, please give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so you can see more videos like this. Yeah.